Welcome to Taking the High Road, a special show dedicated to the trucking industry, specifically at the confluence of recruiting, retention, and compliance. In the fourth year as the host of this show, I bring over 2 decades of industry experience, both on the carrier side as well as the vendor side. And each week I interview industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insights to the driver lifecycle as we discuss the industry's greatest challenges. I always appreciate your feedback, good or bad. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review. I'd also like to thank and highlight the show's valuable sponsors. Their dedication and commitment to the industry and to the show is greatly appreciated. If you're interested in being a sponsor of the show or joining me for an interview, please email Jeremy at takingthehigherroad.com. This week, I'm honored to be joined by the most famous Karen I know, president and owner of Marinette, Wisconsin-based Maria Trucking, Karen Smirchek. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy. Honored to be here. Congratulations on 4 years with your podcast. That says a lot about the success.
Well, I'm a sucker, one way or the other. But you're not the easiest to nail down, but I'm so excited to finally have you on the show. I think a lot of people want to hear what you have to say. I certainly do. I'd love to get into your background and the family business. Perhaps you can share with the audience what Maria Trucking is all about, what really matters most to you, your employees, drivers, customers. I'd also like to touch on your significant involvement and leadership in the industry. And perhaps you can share how this current freight recession has affected you and what measures you're taking sort of to roll with the punches in the meantime. And then lastly, we'll answer a question from a listener during our deeper dive segment. Does that work for you?
Sounds great. Let's get started.
All right. So I start every conversation with a book recommendation. And I'm curious if you've got a book that you might share with the audience as something that you've read that was impactful to you.
Sure. I have a lot of books that have impacted me. So you're making me choose just one. I can't have 5.
Yes, you can.
So I've made New Year's resolutions that I'm not going to order another book off of Amazon until I finish the ones on the shelf. And then I finally decided sometimes you only need to read 1/3 of the book to get what you're looking at. So I'm going to give you 4 books that I think were pretty impactful to me. Atomic Habits by James Clear, I think is really good for anyone trying to coach a new employee to be better, giving them confidence and encouragement and helping set up the habits for discipline. I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and her Dare to Lead book is one that I did with my leadership team. And the advice I got out of that book was don't take advice from someone that's not in the arena with you, because you're always going to get the advice out of the stands. And just really saying, don't take advice from someone who's not where you want to be either. Right.
That makes sense.
So those were pretty big ones. But the Principles book by Ray Dalio is another.
Ooh, that
one
was
of my
deep
favorites.
too. Yeah, that was
know. Good. And the last one is 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. That one's really simple. And my favorite thing out of there is, are you above or below the line? Right? Like, it's so easy to take those the hits to people being below the line, and just how much as a leader you have to stay above the line. He talked about the great recession of this industry here over the last 22 months. And it's like,
but who's counting, right? Who's counting?
Every day. So those, the list can go on. So I actually now making myself read some fiction books, and I've read 4 fiction books this year. So
nice.
Yeah.
I'm mostly like you. I think mostly nonfiction. And by the way, I am not letting my wife hear about this resolution, because I get this all the time. Are you kidding me? Another book? If you take a look right here on my desk, look, you can just see this big, huge stack of books that I haven't read yet. And it's like, for every one book I read, I buy like 6 more. And it's just, I think it's a problem. It's what she makes it seem like. So I'm going to take your advice. I think, that's sort of a good plan of attack. And the 4 books that you listed, the only one I'm not familiar with is the 15 Commitments one. So I'll add that to my Goodreads list. Excellent choices.
One more nugget on it is they have little blips of their chapters on YouTube. So you get a little infographic to go with it, and fun for the team. So you can show your team for the non-readers. So it's a good book.
Well, I love that you and I both share some of that same type of that genre of, business and leadership and that sort of thing. It's good for you. It's fun. I like it. So, and I know you do too. So let's talk about Karen. You're in the 20th year, I think, as president and owner of Maria Trucking. Your father founded the company with one truck in the late 70s. Is that right?
Correct. 1978. My dad founded the operation as a one-man show.
So was it destiny as you were growing up that you'd end up working in the business, or was that kind of always part of the plan?
I think that we should step back and say my dad was raised on a dairy farm, which if I get a choice of who I hire and bring into my office, I'm always going after someone that was raised on a farm because they know the definition of hard work and you have to get the job done. There's not you don't clock out at 5 o'clock or whatever time that is. So we started with the dairy farm and then he transitioned into trucking in 1978. My mom ran the office off our kitchen table. PMs were done in our driveway, things like that. So, yeah. And there was 4 kids in the family. We each had a choice whether or not we wanted to be part of the family business. And I don't know about you, but when I was 16, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I have children of that age. They don't know what they want to do. And for me, it's like you just have to keep trying something until you figure out what it is that you want to do. But doing nothing isn't a choice. And so I kind of approached it as like, well, I don't really know, but you're presented with an opportunity. Say yes. And if you don't like it, do something else. And so being the youngest of 4 kids, my older brother was already back working at the business before I graduated high school. So I had the opportunity to go to college. Actually lived in Milwaukee for a bit of time, worked in public accounting, and I've been told I'm the only person who's left public accounting to work more hours. So most people get out of public accounting for a better work-life balance, but I'm over here struggling and trucking.
Well, I first of all the idea about somebody who came from a dairy farm, I 100% agree that the work ethic there is second to none. Growing up as the youngest, that's impressive, and being around it. I mean, you were exposed to it from the earliest days. At what point did you know that becoming the owner and actually leading the company was what you wanted to do?
When I went to college, I went for a business degree and then was kind of like, well, my brother's in operations. What am I going to do? Took an IT course. And if I only knew what technology was going to do, I probably would have stayed on that path and embraced the suck of IT in college. But accounting came easy to me. So I chose that. And my father had set it up that my brother actually purchased the company from him of saying, hey, if all the kids aren't here, I'm not gifting anything. And so my brother bought the company and it was set up so I was able to come in for 2 years. And after 2 years, I would have the option to buy in to the organization. And so when those 2 years were up, I decided to buy in and ended up then purchasing another 1% because I was the president and saying, let's make this into a WBE to kind of just give my sales team another arrow in the quiver when they're going into customers that are trying to have diversification in their vendors.
Yeah, no, I love that. And getting that involved and sort of getting to make sure that this is exactly what you want to do, but the option was there for you. And one thing I can say that I can really relate is when I got into trucking a little over 20 years ago, it was like, look, do you want to move to Indiana and help run this trucking industry business? I'm like, Indiana trucking, no thanks. I lived a block from the ocean in California, in Southern California. But I'm like, you know what? It's a good opportunity. Let's give it a shot. If we don't like it, we'll come back. And so in the same vein, sometimes you just got to take advantage of opportunities that are presented to you and see what happens. And you have to burn the boats, right? You have to really be all in and make sure that it's something you want to do. So can you share with the audience just a little bit about Varia, what it is maybe about the company that stands out as a carrier in the industry?
So today, Varia is a 200 truck fleet. We have the truckload side. We have an entertainment division, which is hauling gear for events and music concerts. So we have drivers who go out for 4 weeks to 4 months at a time, and they stay together doing the tour. And then we have our logistics arm as well. So we now kind of have a 3-legged stool in all things trucking.
Nice. Well, and so the music concert side, can't help but pause there for a second because my kids are huge Imagine Dragons fans, and they're going in concert. and we're actually going to go see them in Toronto this year.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we've never been to Canada, so we get to check all kinds of boxes. They've never been to a concert, and so we're excited about that. I'm not sure if Imagine Dragons is one of those groups that you work
Syria
with.
will not be hauling the Imagine
Darn
Dragons
it.
tour, but we definitely have trucks going through Canada quite often. Every tour is hitting the major cities in Canada as well.
Well, you mentioned the truckload side, and speaking of truckload, you are very involved in the industry. I have all the years that I've known you, it's always through the lens of my involvement with Truckload Carriers Association, with TCA.
Yeah.
And in fact, you're currently the first vice chair of TCA. You'll become chair next year. Can you share just, how important is being so involved in the industry, and how has that benefited you and Varia?
Yeah, when I envision Truckload Carriers Association, the TCA, that all started for me my junior year of college. So when you say how early did you decide to go? Well, spring break, college as a junior, I was going to the TCA conference, and I was sitting through educational sessions, and I was like, God, this is just so refreshing compared to my college classes and things like that. So they just offered a educational package about transitioning family businesses, all of those things that I was about to partake in. And now I'm getting the education before taking steps. And so that's how I initially viewed TCA, was that educational lens of if I only stay in these four walls, this is the ceiling of what I can achieve. And if I get out of these four walls, which is a lot easier today than it was 20 years ago, but it's just getting out of those four walls there's so much more to learn on the other side of the wall, and to bring those fresh ideas into your business. But the other pieces with TCA is just now the impact that they're having on the political side of things, as well as the benchmarking piece of it. And so to me, it really allowed me I got to grow up in this industry alongside TCA. So being able to serve as the next chairman for TCA, to me, is just giving back to the industry that really helped educate me.
Yeah, and first of all, that's so exciting, and I think for TCA's sake, this is a great testament and testimony. Your involvement for so many years, but also how valuable the association is to those who there are plenty of people who might pay dues but they don't show up. But gosh, you're just getting half of it. You got to show up, you got to be involved and be engaged, because like you said, there's so much education, there's so much networking opportunities that exist there. I would imagine you've probably built relationships. I say this all the time, and I'm sure you could agree. You've built relationships that'll last a lifetime.
For sure, Jeremy. And what I say to people is, like, there's these educational sessions, and sometimes you can look at an agenda from a conference and say, that's not for me. But when I bring nuggets back to the business, I have twice as many nuggets coming out of conversations that I was able to have during the different social aspects of the conference, not sitting in a classroom style setting. I'm not saying that there's not nuggets from those pieces, but it's just like the conversations and connections. And then as you build those relationships, being able to lean into those individuals when you are struggling with the problem.
Yeah, 100% agree. And, we are going through a pretty tough time. I think most of us, you mentioned 22 months, so not like anyone's counting, but I think we're all looking at that going, when is this thing going to end? And it's always 6 months out. Every time we talk about this, it always seems like it's 6 months out. As I shared earlier, you were at the helm, right? You were at the helm during the Great Recession between 2007 and 2009. Can you share which of those experiences, either back then or today, has been a greater challenge in your opinion?
I almost want to turn that back on you and say, have you heard from anyone saying that today is easier? And so for me, there's no comparison that what we're enduring today, whether you've been in this industry for 5 years or for 50 years, no one has been through the softness and the length of the soft market as to what we're going through. I'm blessed that I can say Viri has been in business for 45 years. We plan appropriately so we can endure through this period of time. I joke around saying that I'm going to purchase a wardrobe, but embrace the suck t-shirts, because that's really what we're doing here today. And so for me, it's the encouragement that I have to give teammates that haven't been in this industry for 5 years. They've never seen the fun side of trucking. They've just seen the endure. And so it's like keeping them upbeat of saying, this really is a fun industry. I love trucking. I'm glad I'm in trucking, even though we're dealing with a hard time. I know that a better day is coming. And, what happened is we were sitting here thriving, and it attracted all of these people into the industry, the ones that aren't hanging out here anymore or won't be hanging out here in the near future. So it's just one of those pieces, is that so long as you're appropriately planning from a cash flow standpoint, from a customer standpoint, from a diversity standpoint, those are the things that you need to be doing to be able to endure through. So just because I plan appropriately doesn't mean that I'm having fun every single day, but I'm finding wins, and I'm seeing like small glimmers of hope that the end is coming, and we're just kind of bouncing off the bottom for the last several months. But I know the end is in sight, but I can't tell you if that's in 3 months or that's in 6 months or 9 months. I can't predict that. But what I would say is, you asked me to do this podcast on a holiday week. Who raises their hand in trucking, right? And so for me, like, if someone said, hey, how do you feel about the market today? It would be like the week before a holiday, the week of a holiday, and the week after the holiday. I will never take my freight volumes during that 3-week period to say how I think things are going.
Sure.
Because no customer has consistency during that time. They're either preparing or getting through the holiday or making up for what they lost. So it's so hard to like build confidence and maybe, should I say, pivot actions during a holiday.
Sure.
Let alone when you're praying that the market improves.
Well, and you made a comment about, first of all, this real quick comment about back to the TCA. You mentioned benchmarking. This is, especially at a time like this, I think is a really good opportunity to bounce, ideas, see best practices from some of those peers of yours that are in those groups. And I think it's really rare for an industry that has really competitors, is what they are. They're competing with each other on every, all the time. And then at the same time, they're helping each other with some best practices. And especially when it comes to like safety and compliance, nobody wants to see anybody getting hurt. So that's also something that's probably helped during this period.
For sure. And I think just from that standpoint, Jeremy, is to me like that benchmarking kind of points out the area that I think I'm doing good at. And benchmarking can say, hey, you're the best in this group. And keep doing what you're doing. Or it can say, you're really happy with what you're doing, but get better. Like there's still opportunity, right? And so you can just say, where's the biggest gap? And then my focus can be on where I have the biggest gap. But all in all, like, how are you doing right now? It's just like, just because I'm sucking less doesn't mean I'm happy, right? Like, so where Veery's performing really well compared to the industry, but the worst thing that we can have is an uneducated competitor, right? So if right now the people who are hauling the freight for some of the worst prices out there, they have a fully depreciated tractor and a fully depreciated trailer, and they're just running freight without really taking account of their true costs of the business. So the more that we can educate people as to what their true operating expenses are, the better this industry is going to thrive.
And that's the analytical side of you, because I think that's sort of a little bit of your background as well, right?
I can't shut it off.
Yeah, but it really comes in handy at a time like this.
My son is like, Mom, can you just stop thinking about the efficiency? Like, it's a weekend, and it's like, I see inefficiency, and it's like, let's fix this. We can do better.
Yeah, well, I mean, that always, right? Always. So is there anything that you can maybe point to in particular that you've done in the face of the current, freight recession sort of thing that we're dealing with right now to adapt?
So I mentioned diversity, and I think for me, that's not something that you do in the recession. It's something that you have to do to prepare for it. So not having one customer more than 10% of your business. And, when you get them over 20% Are they running your business or are you running your business? Because they're probably pushing you to do things that sometimes aren't in the best interest of your business. Um, I would say from adapting, even where there's times where people are saying, oh, you need to pay your drivers this much. And we're a dry-van company. I can't pay them what a tanker company can pay them, but I'm going to pay them a fair market wage for what I'm asking them to do and for their home time. So I think sometimes during these really good times, you start making decisions based on comparing yourself to others when really you still need to look at you and what's right for you and what maybe you had some higher rates if you played in the spot market, but now so you're giving driver rate increases for here when really it's like, no, this is a fair rate for what I'm asking you to do, the home time you're receiving, and making sure that you don't make these choices that you have to retreat on and eat crow when you have to go take something away. But yeah, so to me, it was making sure you're making those decisions for long-term success versus really having to adapt. I think the biggest thing that we did is we embrace technology in everything we do. And so we've had some retirements of individuals that we did replace, things like that, of just taking out overhead where available and making sure that we're really focused on training and elevating our team too.
So technology is an area that I'm obviously really close to, so I can appreciate that. And anytime you can operate more efficiently in this industry, this environment, I think you're going to come out, if not ahead of everyone, it's certainly ahead of where you would be otherwise. And I think you're pretty progressive. I mean, that's certainly one word I would use to describe you. And I also know that safety and compliance are core sort of foundational elements of your operation. I know that just through your involvement with TCA. I also know that you take an interest in providing solutions to improve your drivers' health and wellness. In fact, I know that's an area that you and I both are pretty passionate about. Can you share your approach to that and how it's benefited those who have embraced it?
Yeah. So I'm going to actually step back and say, are you familiar with the Keystone habit? So it's kind of like if you make one change as your Keystone habit, these other things snowball into it, right? So, and maybe I can say, if you start exercising, that could be your Keystone habit to eat healthier, because nobody wants to exercise and then eat a bunch of Cheetos because it's going to offset the exercise. So that could, taking a walk in the morning, or so it's like that Keystone habit is something that's going to improve the other. So I kind of look at that in trucking, that a healthy driver is a safer driver. A driver that has good MPG is a safer driver. And so do you have a driver that cares? Because then they're going to do all of these other things that are in the best interest of their career, their wages, their earnings, their home time, the profitability of the company. Right. And so I think I've just gotten to a point in my career being here for 20 years is that I'm not doing this for me anymore. I'm doing this for others. And I love nudging people out of their comfort zone to see, can they achieve something that they never thought was possible? So taking this, whether it be about safety, whether it be about health and wellness, we have a lot of fun initiatives that we're doing, but different cellular generation. We have a bed that the person who made this bed, their goal was to eliminate painkillers. Our drivers can't drive when they're using painkillers. And so we've had drivers who are on work comp due to muscle pain utilize this cellular tissue repair bed and are back out in the truck driving. To me, I think I'm the only trucking company that I know of that everyone walks in my office and says, you have a tanning bed? Nope, it's a health and wellness bed, but it's absolutely amazing. And so that's just one example, but we made all of our trucks smoke free, starting with our 2021 model year. I've lost drivers due to lung cancer, and I just said, I don't want to make it easy for them. That while, them choosing to smoke is their choice, but they don't have to smoke in my truck. And the one driver that I'm thinking of that doesn't drive for me anymore, But he's like, yeah, I wish you wouldn't have let me smoke in your truck. Right. And so it's like, that just rung a bell for me to say, okay, we have to start somewhere, and we're not going to, rip the Band-Aid off and say, we're smoke free, no smoking. But we did say, hey, if you want this new truck, here we go, we're smoke free. And so we're working our way to be a completely smoke-free fleet. But we offer smoking cessation programs, and, really encouraging them, saying, we're going to help you along the way. But it's not if you come to Viriat, you have to participate in this. That everyone gets choices. They get, what do they say? Sitting is the new smoking for the last few years. And it's like, so to me, I'm talking about the people in my office as well. And so where do I think like we're unique and different? I don't have a vending machine in my office with soda and chips. That, I'm not saying you can't drink your Mountain Dew, but I'm not going to provide you with garbage that isn't going to really satisfy you.
Well, and I'm guessing, not to put words in your mouth, but the reason is because you care. Because you care about their well-being, and you know that those things are not contributing to their well-being, but actually detracting.
Yeah, I want to encourage them to do better. And if I'm educating them, and I'm giving them the tools, and they get to choose if they have a good reason why that they're going to participate. And the number of people who come and thank me for what I'm doing is really, like, it's just amazing how blessed I am with the people I'm surrounded by.
Well, I'm encouraged by that, and thank you for sharing that, because that matters. And the only thing now is first of all, smoking is awful, and it's horrible for anyone. And I've lost family members and friends to lung cancer as well. And obviously that's almost in a whole nother bucket. But just focusing on nutrition and exercise and getting consistent sleep, sometimes it's easier said than done. But when you have a really good why it matters, then whether that's your spouse or grandchild or whatever like that. You want to be around. You want to live longer and be healthier. So I love that you and I both are passionate about that, and I'd love to find ways to make a difference in the industry at large, not just in our respective organizations.
Yeah, it's fun to give back.
Well, yeah, it's rewarding, 100%. So we have one question left. This is our deeper dive question, which is a question that is submitted by a listener. And today's deeper dive question is brought to you by Career Now Brands. And the deeper dive question is, retention seems to be the name of the game. What are carriers doing to keep their drivers around longer? Any suggestions from you?
So I'm going to take that as everyone isn't investing in their tractors the same way that I'm investing in my tractor. So we are investing in technology. And I think a lot of times that people hear, you've heard the drivers saying, I don't like collision mitigation. I don't like adaptive cruise. I don't like this. And I feel that if people have the courage to embrace the technology that's available in the tractors, you're going to have a more well-rested driver at the end of the day. And so whether Viria's had inward-facing cameras for 10 years in their trucks. 10 years.
Yeah.
So we're
Did I mention progressive? Did I mention you were progressive?
Yeah. So but like we're on our fourth camera from a technology standpoint, right? Because it keeps changing. And I use that is because people are like, first you had pushback on the camera. Then it was like, why inward facing? And I'm saying that's your office when you're in the truck and when the key is on, and it's your home when the key is off, and there's no inward facing camera. But if your drivers are adamant about not having an inward facing camera, something's happening in that truck that you don't want to know about. And so it's the safety features of lane maintenance, collision mitigation, adaptive steering, that there's so many safety features that you can add onto that truck that while you might get initial pushback from a driver, if they're being honest with you, they're going to come back and say, I'm less tired at the end of my shift than I was before I had these features. And so I think it's just saying the courage to do something, even though you have a driver saying, don't do this. We have so many testimonies about how our camera systems have created safer drivers. They're making competitions with their scores now, things like that. So they They don't feel like that push of, I have to be aggressive to get the miles I need because we have guaranteed pay for them, or minimum pay, right? And so it's just kind of those things all add up into a safer driver, and then they're not getting burnt out. The other thing I would say is home daily. A driver that gets to go home in their own bed every night used to be something unique that Varia offered 15 years ago. And I feel like a lot of people are doing it today. And so to me, giving up family time, and if you have opportunities that you're afraid allows for you to create some home daily position, splitting 500-mile loads into 2 segments for drivers to run home daily, I think would go a long way.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And again, I can't overemphasize enough the progressive mindedness, and it's refreshing to hear. And I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for joining me. It's been a long time. We've been trying to get this to happen. So I'm really grateful. And I also appreciate your passion and involvement in the industry, and look forward to seeing you at some upcoming industry events.
Appreciate the conversation, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for taking the higher road with me. Stay tuned for the next episode as I'm joined by Hope Zavara, founder and CEO of Mother Trucker Yoga. Once again, special thanks to the sponsors of the show. We really appreciate you. If you're interested in being a sponsor or joining me for an interview, please email Jeremy at takingthehigherroad.com. Until next time, thank you for taking the higher road.